We have questions about our future. AB and I both have our birthdays really close. It's like a week apart. So every year we also engage in a lot of conversation about existential, like, what is our life gonna look like? Like, what do you think my life's gonna look like?
And I think inevitably as you get older,
Yeah.
you get more and more curious about what your future will look like. And I think these are the types of questions that we have. First, there's like the baseline, right? Your family, like what you're born into, the types of experiences that you have, especially at ages where you can't necessarily control that.
Yeah.
And I think that is what we kind of see as like the foundation or the baseline. But those things, whether you like it or not, inevitably impact your future. So we're like, what's the baseline we're working with that is impacting our future?
For me, it's definitely like, I'm a first generation. My parents immigrated here, so their like retirement, I'm putting on my shoulders. And that inevitably, whether I like it or not, impacts the future.
For me, I identify as a third culture kid, so kind of an international student, but not really.
Yeah.
And so I think one thing is like the togetherness of family is like we've always been separated since college. So one thing that's on my mind is like, is there a way I can bring my family together?
Yeah.
Would that mean like I move there, they move here? So it comes down to location.
I would say like at this point in our lives now, we've recognized what those baselines are and we've accepted those baselines. So we like stop comparing ourselves with like other people's trajectories or whatever. But I feel like now we're in the third phase, which is like solving for that baseline.
Like addressing it.
And sometimes like I feel the tension, I don't know if you do, is how do I solve for this baseline but also solve for what I want for my future?
Regardless of whether or not I decide to proactively address it, this is something
you
that
can also not address
you
it.
can also, but it's always gonna come up.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I would rather address it in the way that I think is most compatible with my future than to wait for it to like catch up to me.
What are some chances you took that worked out really well? And I think just like reflecting on that for our past can help us kind of reorient for the future on some tiny thing might have like a huge outsized impact.
I feel like for both of us, like we've really seen the effects, the positive effects of following gut feelings.
Yeah.
Right? It's
Negative
like
too?
Negative too. But I think for the most part, it's
positive.
Like, it's almost like listening to your intuition.
Yeah.
And like you can't really explain it to anyone else. And I think one area of my life, it has worked out well, is like career. Yeah. I feel like all the little gut feelings I've listened to, it's worked out because the reason future is so hard is because there's really no right answer.
I don't know, I think just reflecting back, I'm realizing that taking action is so important because you never know how one small thing that you did can have ripple effects into the future. So for example, a big part of what helped me get to where I am today is because I cold emailed this person. And I tried like 3 different variations of their email because I wasn't sure what their email was. And that landed me a lunch appointment with them. And that led to an interview, right?
At Notion?
At Notion.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So if I've never like found who that person was, like guessed 3 variations of their email, I would have never even got my foot in the door.
I think it's good to remember the chances you took to get to where you are, because I think it's also like a good reminder of like, we want to constantly be building momentum, right? In whatever small ways that might look like. But at the end of the day, kind of have to just like let it go. Like you do you, put in the work, build the momentum, but there's so many other inputs around us that will inevitably impact our future.
And you can only control what you control. When do you decide which doors to close and which doors to open and move forward? Fun fact, I don't know if it's a fun fact, but it's fun for us. At the end of every year, we both do this like
self-report.
I know, super nerdy, but we read through all of our journal entries and literally it's the most interesting thing. And you get a sneak peek into like your mental and emotional state throughout the entire year. And it's so interesting to read it almost objectively. It's like, oh, this is what I was thinking about. And 9 times out of 10, you're talking about the 4 like same things throughout the whole year.
Yeah.
And I think those are good signals on like, oh yeah, this is a problem. I need to address that. It's like, oh yeah, this is a choice or decision that I've been procrastinating on too.
Yeah, I think introspection is so underrated.
It is.
Because like if you don't know
I think we do too much.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is underrated.
Well, but like I think it's like if you don't know yourself,
yeah,
and
know thyself.
You're living with yourself your whole life. Like that's the only person you'll be.
How I see it is like, I think the reason why I feel like introspection is so important, it's like without it, you're living life with blinders on.
Yeah.
So recently I changed my car wipers. Every time I did it, it got blurrier. And I was like, this is what my life would be like if I didn't introspect.
And that's why you need, I think, also the right people in your life to kind of like point out your blind sides. Because everybody inevitably like has blind sides too. Listening to yourself, like your thoughts, the feelings you're having, the actions you take, what excites you, like as a just like a really easy question. Honing into like, what is it that I want? Because only I will be here feeling the effects of the decisions that I'm making.
And I know we like say this every other video, but another plug for therapy, because I think that is so helpful in like having an objective point of view into like our thoughts. Because sometimes our thoughts are like full of shit. Not all of it is helpful.
And that routine is good too.
Yeah, that routine of like which thoughts to filter out, which thoughts to like, oh, this is actually important. And I think like a therapist like does help with that, and like friends as well. Yeah.
So TLDR, invest in yourself.
Yes.
And invest in like the quality of people around you, because I think that will be one of like the biggest impacts of what your future will look like.
Okay, so I might be totally wrong here, so someone fact check me. But I think this is like Jeff Bezos' thing. How do you minimize future regrets?
Yeah,
right?
Because I think regret is also inevitable.
Yeah.
Because I think,
well, some people are like, I don't believe in regrets. And I'm like, do you really, or are you just saying that to be positive?
Maybe the regret is that there's so many alternate realities that you can like conjure up in your mind. And sometimes I think if you're like unhappy with the present, you kind of doubt all the choices you made in the past. But there's still the future to look forward to. But I think that's the book. We read this book, and I think it kind of like sums it up. It was called like Midnight Library. The protagonist is basically like in this endless library of all these books that could be like all these different realities. And I think most
did you just slap my plan? Yes, okay,
continue. And I think sometimes like that's how I feel. I'm like, do I want to be like this successful powerhouse, or do I want to like feel deep love and have children?
Not that you can't
have both, but I think inevitably we have limited time, limited energies.
And maybe that just comes down to really understanding and articulating like what is the most important to you. And knowing like in which area of life do you think you feel the most regret, and then trying to minimize and de-risk that.
I mentioned this in one of the videos, but 4,000 Weeks really put a good twist to all that for me, because I think instead of seeing it as like limited time and capacity, it's more so reframing it to know, because like we can't do everything, the things that we do decide to do, no matter how small, are just as important, you know? And it almost, that's like the whole reason why our life has so much meaning, and the decisions that we make have so much meaning, is because we've made them knowing that there's an infinite number of possibilities that we've decided to walk away from and chosen to do that one thing instead.
What are some regrets that you can see yourself having in the next 5 to 10 to 20 years, and what can you do in 2023 to minimize those potential regrets?
So thanks so much for watching. I feel like obviously, because we're talking about such an open-ended topic like our future, we obviously do not have any of the answers.
Yeah.
But I think we wanted to understand, what are the inputs that affect our future? So, you know, whether that comes down to like baseline, chance, choice, or even potential regrets.
So we hope this resonates and helps like unpack some of the more amorphous feelings that we may all have about the future, and enjoy the holidays. Bye!